Very blessed to have Bill Bunch here to address us. He needs no introduction, but I will go ahead and tell you that Bill has been leading the charge to keep developers from cannibalizing our town for 30 years. Leading Save Our Springs. Are you ready? Okay. All right. I could say, I feel like people want to hear from you, not me, so.
All right. Great.
We always love to hear from you, Terry.
Thank you so much, Terry, and Cedar, and Brett, Brandon. Is it Brandon? I'm sorry. Brooke. There we go. I got it in my brain now. Thank y'all so much for making this happen. Thank you for making the Free Zilker Coalition come together. It's so greatly needed. You know, we haven't seen an environmental movement like this in Austin for a long time, where a whole bunch of different nodes of groups came together, took action, didn't wait for direction from any of the established groups, and really worked well together. And bridging the whole community. I think we're completely united across the board that we don't need concrete and construction and commercialization in Zilker Park. What we need to do is still save the springs, because they're not saved yet. There's still a lot of land upstream in the watershed that needs to be protected, that's still up for grabs. It's not developed or protected. And what happens to that land, the upper roughly half of the watershed, will really decide if we still have the beautiful Barton Springs that we have today in 10, 20, 30 years. So, and this is part of it, because here we have the city taking a direct attack at the springs themselves, proposing to build this giant underground parking garage literally within 300 yards or less of the springs. The whole park is Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone. There's cave and karst features. There's fractures, the fractures that the springs themselves come out of across the park. Virtually the whole park is an archaeological district designated, excavated archaeological site. Any of that major construction that's in the plan, the garages, the 6 bridges, not kidding, 6. They say only 5, but they're hiding one of them. The amphitheater, the multiple new restaurants, outdoor beer gardens, etc., that are also kind of hidden, but they're in the plan, I promise you. All of that directly threatens Barton Springs and the creek. And we need everybody. So y'all know a lot of this. I'm not going to go on too long. If there's questions, I'd love to answer them. I just think that it's critical, like the previous speakers have said. We have the only power we have is numbers right now, and the only thing that the council who've been elected with the big money, and what Daniel Yanis said just a little while ago is dead on. The 1% or even the top 0.5% have really sort of taken over Austin in so many ways. And a lot of what they've done, we haven't resisted. I mean, there's massive amounts of development in this city. Nobody's opposed or opposed in any significant way. I mean, we've been booming. We're issuing building permits faster than any other city in the country. And yet all you hear is that, we're trying to slow down development and, take away jobs, the same lies they've been telling for 30 years. And it's time that the public get engaged and take back the power at City Hall. And that's what we did with the SOS movement. The ordinance itself was really important, but it was not near as important as what we built out of that movement to elect new people at City Hall and to engage the community in a conversation and to reset our priorities and values around what is our public trust, our public heritage of our air, our climate, our water, our parks, all of that belongs to every one of us. And if we don't stand up and protect it, it's going to be destroyed by this short-term greed, profit motive that's really just running rampant and destroying the planet. So again, thank y'all so much. It's a real treasure for me to be reconnected with Cedar. She was one of the very first activists I got involved with in the 80s. My first summer here in 85, it was, with the Earth First Hellraisers. If it wasn't for the radical Earth Firsters, the golden cheek warbler would not be listed endangered. We would not have about 30,000 acres of land permanently protected for endangered species habitats. We probably wouldn't have the other 25,000 that's been protected for Barton Springs watershed protection lands. A whole raft of really important things happened that were really spurred by a handful of UT students who cared enough to put their voices and their bodies on the line when it really mattered back in the late 80s. So great to reconnect with you, Cedar, and to be here at High Side this afternoon. There's going to be all kinds of things going on between now and August 31 to keep expanding our reach, bringing more people to the table, getting them up to speed, and making sure that they have August 31 blocked out on their calendar to spend the day, and especially the late afternoon and evening at City Hall. Yes?
Hey Bill, I've heard time and time again that we can't do anything to fix anything that's broken in the park until we have a master plan. What edict or ordinance is causing this plan failure of Zilker Park?
Okay, so that statement that we can't do anything to fix problems in the park without a master plan is one of such a long list of lies they're telling right now. It's absolutely absurd. They say in the plan that it's going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase carbon sequestration. It's a total lie, and we just got that debunked with an analysis by a master's electrical engineer who ran the city's own carbon predictor tool and ran it the right way. So there's just so many lies here. The creek below the springs really got hammered during the pandemic when the pool was closed and that was the only place to go to swim. We do need to direct public access to specific points, not cut it off, but direct it to specific points, and then restore a lot of those stream banks there, the riparian habitat, so that we have both better wildlife and better things for people. So thanks for that question. Yes, another one?
Who are the city council people that we need to pressure most at this time?
Okay, the questions, who are the city council member we need to pressure the most at this time? I hate to say it, but I think it's all of them. The big money, the Parks Industrial Complex, as I call it, which is all the people that are getting the ACL money that funnels to the Parks Foundation and then is re-granted out. So all of those groups, there's a whole raft of them. The groups that are already making big bucks off of our parks by the privatization that's happened with our parks, but mostly below radar. The most extreme example of that being the Waterloo Greenway Conservancy over in Waterloo Park. And that story's never been told. We're trying to get that together and get that story out there before the August 31, because that's really their model for Zilker Park. They want it taken over by these private groups that have zero oversight from city council or even from the Parks Board, and a free reign to just convert the park into a money-making machine. And that's what that new Moody Amphitheater that's over there in Waterloo Park is all about. And whether you like it or dislike it, it's there. We don't need a second one in Zilker Park. I mean, seriously, come on.
Let's name another thing Moody, right?
But Mayor Watson is the only person on the whole council out of the 11 who has put out a very clear statement saying that basically he's against everything in the plan. I was shocked at how much plain language he used to say he's against the privatization, he's against the amphitheater, he's against the parking garages, and oh, by the way, we have neglected parks all over the city. And if we've got millions of dollars to spend on parks, it needs to be spent somewhere else. Yes. None of the other council has followed his lead yet, by the way. I mean, they're all just painfully silent, and it's because they've been building this fix for the park, this money-making machine, for years now, below radar. And they were smelling that money. They've already divvied up how they're going to handle the concessions and the revenue that they're going to generate in the park. So by no means let yourself be put to sleep and thinking, oh, we've got their attention and we've got this one. It's like the Barton Creek Putt all night. We got to be there till the vote is cast in full force. You can't leave early. You can't think you already got it in the bag, because we don't. The money just has too much influence on this decision. Yes?
What do you say to the people who say that the parking garages are cleaning up the runoff that is happening from the surface area parking now? Because they were here today heckling the people at the door.
Oh, wow. Okay. So existing parking lots versus new. So the one new one we built off the back gate of the Springs, they did pave an unpaved parking lot, and generally we don't want to see that, but it was a Dust Bowl mess. When they did that, they pushed it back from the creek, so that improved the runoff. And if you look at it, they put that berm all the way around that south field, so the entire south field is now an filtration basin that's so subtle most people don't even notice it. And it's still completely usable as recreational space. So in my view, that's what we should do with the other two parking lots that are on the south side of the creek. Push them back, shrink them a little bit, not too much, and put a little bit of treatment that we can put in there. That's way better environmentally than giant concrete parking garages, because you're threatening the Springs directly in that construction phase. The vast majority of pollution happens during the construction phase, and concrete is the third worst substance on the planet, behind oil and gas and coal, for greenhouse gas emissions. And then once you have a parking garage, and you spent that money and it's concrete, it's there not forever, but pretty close to it. It's a nightmare. And so, in my view, the parking lots that are on the ground are way more environmentally benign than building anything new that is concrete, demolition, construction, and then penetration into the aquifer. Yeah. Also, the city's mobility plan calls for a shift to 50% or less of daily trips being non-automobile. So, everything from telecommuting to, bikes, e-bikes, electric scooters, buses, etc. So the idea, and across the whole city, they're eliminating parking requirements. So the idea that at the same time, we're getting rid of parking somewhere else, but now we're going to go spend 60, 80, or $100 million on new parking garages in our flagship park is just, total hypocrisy, stupidity. Just the cognitive dissonance is off the charts. So yeah, parking garages are bad for the environment, bad for traffic, in so many ways. All right, another question back here. Yes. So I know some of it, and we're trying to assemble the rest of it. But so a group of private folks who were wealthy downtown condo owners formed the original, it was called Waller Creek Park Conservancy, and then they changed the name to Waterloo Park. And they went to the city and they said, if you'll build the flood control tunnel under the park and take this additional land out of the floodplain, we'll bring all this private philanthropy dollars to the table, and we can take care of the park, fix up the park, and it won't cost the city a dime. But you got to build the tunnel. So initially the tunnel was supposed to be $25 million, and then it was $60 million, and then it was $110, and it ended up costing, I believe we're at $165 million and counting for the flood control tunnel that was built. The private conservancy did go raise a ton of private philanthropy. They got $12 million from the Moody Foundation to build the Moody Amphitheater that was recently opened. But along the way, they got really ambitious, and they brought the guy down who was with the Highline Conservancy in New York City. And there is a master plan. They may have taken it off their website because it's so embarrassing if you actually read it, because they want to build a High Line from scratch. If anybody knows the High Line in New York City, it's super attractive. It was an old abandoned railroad that was elevated through the part of the city and broken down and teared down, and they were trying to get rid of it for a while as an eyesore. But then somebody figured out, hey, we can reclaim it and make this sort of elevated promenade where there used to be this elevated train, and it became this huge, wonderful thing. But it's sort of reclaiming a part of the city's park. In the plan, they are proposing to actually build an elevated park walkway over Waller Creek Park, so that the rich people that are associated with the hospital district and the innovation district and all that bullshit, they won't ever have to actually touch the earth or go down there near the creek where there might be somebody sleeping in the bushes. And the budget for this is about $300 million. And what they did was they went to the city and got a tax increment finance zone dedicated. And they actually have now a dedicated tax revenue stream diverted from the general fund that's projected to generate about $280 million for construction. They just kicked off phase 2, so not the elevated part, but a bridge across the lake at the mouth down. They were calling it the Delta, and I don't know what they're calling it now. They keep changing the names. But they have a revenue stream of about $300 million for 34 acres of parkland. And meanwhile, we can't keep the pools open, in our lower income neighborhoods around the city. We can't pay the lifeguards enough. We can't build new swimming pools in neighborhoods that don't have them. I mean, it's seriously sick shit. And it goes back to this idea that, the rich just keep feathering their own nests and doing what they want and cutting us out of the decision-making process. I really think they want one. That was their idea of how to fund the Zilker Park plan, is set up one of those tax increment finance zones, just like they did for Waller Creek, so that it was dedicated funding and they could debt finance that stuff without taking it to the voters. But they just created one on the south shore of the lake. Y'all may have seen that, the South Central Waterfront Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. SOS and a taxpayer group, Taxpayers Against Giveaways, and some individuals, we've sued to invalidate that one. And so I think that has fended off their push to create one around Zilker Park. But I'm pretty sure that their playbook was to replicate what's happened at Waterloo Park, at Zilker, and any other park that they think can generate cash if you just commercialize it the right way. So that's a longer answer than you probably were hoping for, but
No, it's great.
yeah. So another piece of that is we don't have any local watchdog journalism anymore. You know, the Chronicle used to be a reliable source. I mean, the whole SOS movement would have never happened but for the Chronicle following these issues religiously, week in and week out, cheering the environmental community, the social justice community. But now their biggest revenue comes from the South by Southwest Music Festival. And that operation is subsidized by City Hall to the tune of $8 to $10 million every year. So for about the last 12 to 15 years, the Chronicle has been completely muzzled as any kind of honest and reliable delivery of news or opinion on City Hall affairs. Most people don't know that, but we're not suffering this. This is across the country. Local watchdog journalists have been just destroyed, you know, by the internet. And the Statesman was always a corporate paper, but at least they had a news staff, and that's just been completely gutted down to almost nothing. And so this is a huge challenge that we have with the fraction, you know, all the media blitz of all kinds of distractions, of getting the word out and informing people on what's really happening. And you may have noticed the Chronicle's been, you know, noticeably silent to minimally informative on Zilker Park. And I think that's because the company that bought their controlling interest, which is Penske Media, I don't know if you know this, but they own Rolling Stone magazine, Hollywood Reporter. They're a big sort of entertainment conglomerate. I'm not clear on their ties with Live Nation Ticketmaster that owns ACL now, or the controlling interest in ACL, but there's definitely some intertwining happening there as well. So do not expect the Chronicle to be telling it straight and cheering people on about what's the right future for Zilker Park. Again, more background than you probably wanted.
No, we want it all.
Okay. Oh, sure. Yes.
Second, walkabouts.
Okay, so she asked about walkabouts in the park. We have been doing those on Saturday morning at 10. Other people were leading them. I wasn't, but I was out of town for a while. I'm back, so we'll schedule that. We'll definitely announce other things. We're trying to figure out, and we want to talk with Free Zilker. We want to organize something on the Saturday morning before the Thursday 31st event to get some TV news coverage and get people psyched up and ready before that Thursday. So if you're going to be around that Saturday before the 31st, whatever it is, mark that off on your calendar. So I don't know if it's like a march from the park to the City Hall and back and then swim after, or a bike. Some people suggested a bike ride to go to a few parks to kind of highlight that we need to love the parks that aren't being loved, and then ride bikes to City Hall for a little speechifying there or something. But we definitely, that Saturday before the Thursday, we want to do something that will like tell people, hey, it's happening this week, don't forget. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. We're gonna have our next band now, Agnosticon.
Give it up again for Bill Budge. Thank you so much. Agnosticon will be on in about 5 minutes. And you really want to stick around for these guys. They're amazing.